and welcome to An Actor's Life, the series. I am your host, creator, and executive producer, Michele Baldwin. And 16 days away from voting, we need to talk.
Hey, how you doing, beautiful people? This is Benja K. Thomas. I am host and producer for Actors Life, the series Rewind. And today we are doing a show on voting. But you know what? The young people are talking about it today. So we're turning it over to them. Is that right, Michele?
Oh, that's right. Today we're turning it over to the youth. All right, Benja, let's go. Let's leave it with Brandon, Nicole, Emily, and Nathaniel.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Hart Lopez. Voting right now is very important to me. I believe that it's really essential in our country at this time. I'm voting because I believe that our current administration is corrupt and infringing upon our basic human rights. And that voting is one of the what seems like a small way, but is a big way to bring about change in our country.
Awesome. Hi everyone. How you doing? It's Brandon Givens. So for me, voting has been something that I've been involved in, an active participant since turning 18. I remember that was like pretty much like a birthday gift, one of my first birthday gifts. So it's something that I have participated in, but I know it's also my responsibility to try to educate and talk to my peers as much as possible, because I know that they may not share the same interests. But a lot of the concerns and issues that we may face similarly are extremely important. So I know every 4 years, the presidential election comes around. But me, I really like to understand the Senate and your state and local politics as well that affect you 10 times more than whoever is in the White House. So in this year, we know that the turnout is going to be probably 10 times larger than we've seen before with the mail-in ballot, because it's a lot easier now for people, and obviously not having to wait in those lines, but we want people to understand the importance of voting, understand the issues and concerns that are top priority to them, and to make sure that it is voiced, and by doing that is voting.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Uriah. I definitely believe and agree with Emily and Brandon as far as voting being imperative, especially in this time and day. Just like you, Brandon, I voted when I turned 18 for Obama, and it felt so liberating. And I felt like I had so much control for my future, for other people's future, and for really just the country and the state that we were in, and continuing that strive of growth and evolution. And now the world is crazy, and I think we're all just a bit anxious and scared going into this election just because of the turnout from when the president now, Trump, basically had became president. And my views on voting now have definitely shifted and changed the older that I get. I still feel like it's imperative. I feel like it's very important that people have a voice and that they use this voice. And another side of me also just thinks that the system was never really created for people that look like me. And that's something that's very important to think about as well. I feel like as I get older, I want the system that we are living in now to be abolished and to create a new, but I know that'll take time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy on so many different parts. And we would really have to align as a nation to get that done. So I'm not sure if it'll happen in my lifetime, but that's really how I think about it now. But just like you too, I really just try to do my best to make my voice heard and solidify my viewpoints and whatever I feel is right.
Hey friends, so my name is Nicole Johnson, and I am founder and creative director of a nonprofit organization called Move. I provide community members with the resources to address social issues creatively, and we do that in a variety of ways, primarily through our relationship with the community and their like leadership. So someone who is an outstanding leader that has either artistic ability, communication skills, the ability to navigate complex issues, we want to empower them and give them as much resources as possible so that they can address the issues that they're passionate about. I'm extremely passionate currently and have always been about our responsibility to vote. And I think with the pending angst and anxiety that we all feel right now, it is extremely important to be able to exercise your voice if you haven't been able to do it this year. There's been a lot of things that are ongoing traumas and triggers that have hindered us from like being able to speak out about the things that we are passionate about, or maybe it's made it extremely exhausting to talk about the things that you're passionate about. And so I believe voting is one of the easiest ways to let your voice be heard. Um, at least you can align yourself with a candidate that is close to your values and of your interest in like how the world should be shaped. And you can simply just like check off a name. I always talk about the simplicity of voting as a part of our civic responsibility and how easy it is to just show up, and now these days to just send in your mail-in ballot. So I don't know if anyone else in the group wants to speak to it, but I always really love speaking about the simplicity of voting and how it should be just one of our easiest things to do.
So yes, definitely agreeing with you, Nicole, as far as that mail-in vote, the mailing vote just being so beneficial and a bit more simple and easier for people, especially people that I know a lot of us, we don't got good knees and standing in those lines are a lot. And so, you know, mailing in is definitely a great option, and definitely a good resource for a lot of people, such as myself. I actually have to get my vote in the mail, so I will see you later. And thank you for showing up. I'll see everybody later.
I think that it's easy to do that, and it's great to see people doing it so early. And apparently, even I'm here in Florida right now, and mail-in ballots for Democrats in particular are almost, I think, 45% higher than they were at this point during 4 years ago, during the election 4 years ago. So it's good to see people taking the responsibility. Democrats tend to do that earlier always, but it is good to see larger numbers this year.
And obviously, again, just to piggyback off of that, and that's what I was saying before, as far as the turnout, obviously going to be increasingly larger for the Democrats, because oftentimes we have this younger population. Again, when you see those lines or any type of obstructions to getting you to vote, it's very easy to say, you know, forget it. Hey, I tried, you know, I gave it that good college try, you know, next year I'll show up. Whereas, you know, on the other side with Republicans, you know, they make it their duty to go out because they understand the importance of having their voices heard. And that's why their elected officials show up for them for any of their concerns. So hopefully, again, with this generation, with the next generation, you know, coming, we understand the importance. We see it when we don't have elected officials who share the same views and concerns that we do. So that's why we want to make it our choice to make sure that we put those people in power. And secondly, is to hold them accountable. So it's one thing to vote and get them in there, but it's another to make sure that we demand that they, you know, step up to the plate, because, you know, when they came to ask for our support, that was kind of the deal. So we held up our end. Now it's time to make sure that they hold up theirs. And then that's when we'll begin to see the progress that we want to see for ourselves, as well as for you know, our families and future generations as well.
I wanted to add that I felt that this year was actually very easy to register to vote because I'm originally from South Carolina, and I was able to use rockthevote.com, and there was iwillvote.com, and I didn't have a New York form of ID, but I'm able to vote. I am a New York resident, but through that website, through Rock the Vote, I was able to register for New York. So I know the deadlines are fast, some are gone, and they're quickly approaching. So those were two resources that were very easy to register through.
Yeah, I think that also going back to Brandon's point around accountability, and maybe even looking at some of the concerns that are that people have already expressed to us that we can talk about. But I know that my major concern around accountability is that working in city government previous, I know the sense of bureaucracy and apathy that tends to kind of riddle our effective, you know, action after elections, and things feel extremely unmovable, even when you're interested in changing policy, and the amount of time that it takes to shift not only the culture within the walls of government, but the culture beyond. It insurmountable sometimes. So that's been one of my major concerns. And I understand why some people will feel this sense of, yes, I'll vote, but XYZ, whatever they're going to say in response to it. Because we come from a history of government that tends not to be able to affect change. And I understand that the larger the system, the harder to actually shift it or to stop it in its tracks and start something new. That's been always one of my concerns, and I totally understand why people are often having a hard time. Like I've heard a couple of people tell me that they're not interested in voting this year, and it's just like, okay, guys, all right.
It's like, if this year is not going to be the one to get you, then I honestly, I don't know what will.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because that is the attitude. And there are people who are our age, and that's unfortunate that they are that apathetic, that untrusting and like disappointed in government structures and just the concept of like civic duty. That's obviously an issue that we've had with education, and like we didn't educate people to think about this as a historical importance, that people have actually died, but then also on top of that, people died trying to give us the opportunity to vote.
Correct.
In the first place. And I know people are dying now too, physically. So it just feels kind of like counterintuitive for people to not want to vote right now.
I feel like one of the issues I've heard a lot, because I'm from the South and I live in a very like liberal state, but I am around very conservative people in the South, is that a lot of people last election, they didn't vote because they didn't want to support Trump, but they didn't align their values with Hillary. And I think that's the struggle I've been hearing some people share in my life, is that they're wanting to vote for smaller parties or not. And that kind of creates this issue we see happen 4 years ago, and we don't want to see that happen again. And it's, how do we have those conversations with people who might not be fully aligned with one candidate or not, but to encourage them that I think often it feels like sometimes voting for the lesser of two evils when you don't have very extreme values on one side or another. But how do we have those conversations with people to encourage them to vote anyways, and to realize that being passive about it is going to lead to another 4 years of what we're experiencing now.
So, and I know, just to kind of touch on what I was talking about before, as far as like local, like sometimes I even have those conversations too. I'm like, listen, maybe locally is really where you can kind of voice yourself a little bit more. And obviously, the bigger picture comes down to states. Like I live in New Jersey, we kind of have one coordinator here for Biden. We're doing a lot of virtual phone banking in the battleground states. So that's really going to be the game plan for a state like New Jersey that kind of always carries itself kind of blue. So kind of, when you're in those, it's kind of a little, I don't want to say less important, but people tend to say, oh, okay, well, New Jersey's going to go blue. Let that be the case. But kind of when you're in battleground states, like every vote literally matters. So in a state like this one, you say, okay, well, more on a local race, if you have a council person, a mayor, even maybe someone in the assembly who kind of speaks a little bit more to all of your core issues, right? They check more of those boxes out. Then that's where you really want to exercise your vote at, because, you're probably making even more of a difference that way as well. But, at least for me, that's kind of been the takeaway from it. But, when you're kind of on a presidential election, it's kind of like, all right, well, you really don't want to waste your vote at this particular moment. Whereas, like I said, on a more local level, your vote carries more weight.
Yeah, I'm always really fascinated with our lack of knowledge about local power and state. Just it feels like a very distant, when you grow up in the education system in America, it's not something that we spend a year or semesters talking about. And that's really unfortunate, because people are not aware of their community boards. People aren't aware of just what the city government structure. I learned about city government by working in city government, and then understanding the relationship to state. You would think that would be incorporated in our education system, but it's not.
Yep, sadly. I think on here, I see obviously healthcare, Supreme Court, COVID-19, gun policy, foreign policy, immigration. I mean, we could definitely touch on all of those. Obviously, the economic inequalities, which is something that I've been, kind of pushing a lot as well, and getting young people to understand the kind of relationship with money that they have. Because obviously, in a lot of minority communities, we already know the rates, the household wealth. But more from a personal standpoint, is something that I realized when I was like 23, 24, like I wasn't saving enough, right? Like I was spending a lot of money. So it's like to kind of get you to understand, hey, I don't want to repeat kind of the mistakes of my past, and kind of want to look forward, because obviously, if you're thankfully, if you are gainfully employed, you want to make sure that you're doing the right things to be able to set yourself up long term. So obviously, we know that there are bigger conversations to be had as far as from a systemic standpoint, and kind of whether it's barriers to housing or affordable housing, and obviously, the student loan crisis, which is going to be huge in the next 2 years, because it just seems like it's getting bigger, and it's definitely holding up generations from being able to achieve those kind of next goals that they have, which will then boost the economy forward as well. So, our voting block and our voting demographic is going to be really paramount to helping to change a lot of the kind of destructive practices that have been done in the past. So the kind of earlier we understand this, and kind of begin to formulate a plan and hold steady to that, that's when we'll really start to see some sizable changes.
Yeah, I also, a question that just popped up, the idea of tuition being free. As we're thinking about how to invest further in the economy, it's always investing in the actual people. And I think Biden's plan around having access to a 2-year institution for free is pretty revolutionary. I always find it interesting how ideas begin and if they can be implemented, because that's a very amazing opportunity to give everyone access to a public college. And I think and then there's also the concept of I think it's $10,000 off of any debt that under Biden's plan that we would receive as just citizens of America, which these just feel like gargantuan. I'm excited that that is like something that we would be pursuing. I also believe in them. So I do believe that everyone should have access to higher education, and it should be, if anything, extremely encouraged, just because the job market becomes so competitive that if you don't have certain skill sets, you really you don't have much upward mobility in your life in general, around the amount that you can get paid or what you can be considered for in general. And that feels unfair and inequitable. So to that question, and then as just an overall concept or an overall commentary on the economy, if you're investing in people who have skills, they will be able to forward the economy in a way. But what we don't do in America is we don't invest in every student, even from our grade school space. We don't invest in them enough that they can contribute to the economy in a substantial way.
I would like to add to that to say that I feel that a lot of the times in the US, we look to ourselves and we put ourselves at the top as this like alpha as a country, because we're a very wealthy country. And I feel like leaders could lessen some of that kind of being egocentric in a way, and look towards models in Europe and in other countries where they have been able to support their citizens having education. And what I've been told is they have exams that they have to go through. So it's not necessarily just, okay, it's accessible to everyone. You have to earn your keep in a way. And I think I would like to see more leaders doing that. So I agree with this plan.
All right, perfect. And then I know we had another question, obviously asking how can, voting be incorporated into schools? And that's kind of something similar. I know when I was in high school, they had like, not like Model UN, but like student government. So like different kind of initiatives like that I know like a lot of students coming up would definitely want to kind of spearhead, because, it's nothing worse than being uninformed when you feel like, you definitely had the resources, or the resources were there. to inform you and just kind of switching like, okay, do I need 4 years of algebra and statistics? Like, like when am I really using that? So would I be able to minimize a little bit of that to be able to actually learn and develop life skills that would be able to serve me far longer than, these classes that are kind of, I don't want to say useless, but kind of pointless to a certain extent, especially if you don't see yourself going, further in any of those kind of fields or studies. So being able to get back to being able to, again, to just have like those life skills and those life components, again, to be able to educate yourself and obviously your friends as well.
Actually, when I was in high school, they brought in people who registered us to vote, and we had a school assembly, and I think it was, all the high school seniors, and it took no time. And so I was also able to vote very easily. And I think that should be a standard across the board, across the states, across the board.
Yep.
Yeah. I think also speaking to, unless you had another thought on the economy and education, Brandon, I was also thinking in general across the board, like sentiment for things like healthcare and how we could invest. It's ridiculous at this time that people don't recognize that the civic inefficiencies of government will hinder us if we do not, like the civic inefficiencies of this current administration will hinder us in a time where we're direly in need of healthcare. So it's imperative that we work with an administration that has a plan for healthcare. Just like point blank, there's like nothing else that I can say besides the fact that we just need an actual plan, and then what would you call it? Like proof of being able to implement it. And this is just, at this point, I feel like it's consistently, I'm feeling consistently gaslighted, because it feels that this should be a very easy understanding of what could be useful for people and what will not be useful for people when it comes to their healthcare in the middle of a pandemic. But weirdly, we're still like debating, and it's disappointing.
Absolutely. And then just to follow up on healthcare, obviously I have you two young ladies here, just talking about, obviously with women's rights, reproductive rights. Obviously this past week watching the presidential debate. So me as a male, anytime I hear another male talk about women's reproductive right, it's just mind blowing. Like honestly, I can't wrap my head around it. But obviously I definitely want to get, your ladies' views and your takes on it as well, obviously conversations that you're having, with friends, families, and obviously the candidates who you kind of look forward to, as well as their platform and plans.
Okay, I'll go on this because I have no problem sharing that when I moved to New York 4 years ago, I was not able to have healthcare up until I was 26 because of my parents, the kind of insurance they had. They were with the co-op. So I, as a young artist fresh out of college who has student loan debt and such, living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, I certainly had to go under Medicaid and get United Healthcare. I still use it to this day, and it's been absolutely essential, as well as for my reproductive health care as well. The fact that I've been able to have access to clinics and spaces that could give me the services I needed when I was unwell or in order to sustain my health. And the thought of that being stripped away from me is very scary, because there are people out there who I consider like myself who do not abuse that kind of assistance or that kind of help, who are not just going to the ER left and right and asking for too much. It's a basic right that we should all have. And the thought of that being taken away when I don't have, especially when my industry is being stripped of a lot of their funding and support at this time as well. Right. That I think is absolutely essential that we look at when we're going in to vote.
Yeah, I think there's also just the overall moral issue that consistently rots our nation, of people feeling their need to control the way that other people's bodies are just managed. It's just a very unfortunate, it's a moral issue that I think I'd like to speak to more so, because I believe in the idea that people can shift our culture and they can do it in very substantial ways, one being policy. Sometimes it's through education, sometimes it's through management, lots of different ways to like help people navigate this world, right? And the idea is that you would be helping people navigate the world rather than like trying to control the way that they are navigating the world. And so I think what I'm looking forward to is a candidate that particularly supports choice. And only because even as a Christian, I believe in the idea that people are given the agency to live their lives the ways that they'd like to live their life. And that's not a part of our like constitution that our faith should be obstructing and changing how people live. That's the first thing. But then it's also not a part of our work in our like Americanness to combine church and state in the first place. So it's just a very unfortunate moral dilemma that I see with this ongoing interest in creating policies and demolishing institutions that are out here to provide resources for people in the name of some sort of faith. And that's just my opinion, but I'm definitely, in response to your question, I'm looking for candidates that support choice. And I am a Christian, so yeah.
Awesome. The last 6 months, I think for the rest of the world, us as minorities, this is something that we face with the social injustice that we've kind of seen. And obviously every year, you know, this plays out. But I think this year, again, I feel like with the George Floyd, it was just really America kind of woke up like, whoa, what's going on here? So, I mean, I definitely want to get, you know, you ladies' takes on it. I know me, I know everyone kept saying, oh, these tough conversations. I'm like, what tough conversations? Like, I remember when I got my driver's license, like that was the first conversation I had. Hey, when you get pulled over by a police officer, you know, this is the kind of things that you want to do, you know, how you have to dress, going through the phase of the baggy t-shirts, and my dad, you know, pulling me to the side and saying, listen, like you can't dress like that. You know, if the description comes in on the radio, you're fitting in with everyone else, and we don't need that for you. So, you know, I definitely want to get, you know, kind of your take on it as well. I don't know if you guys maybe participated in any, you know, demonstrations, you know, is anything that you're doing kind of locally as well to, again, to continue to keep, you know, the focus and the attention on it, and to continue to raise the awareness on these issues that have obviously been plaguing America since the beginning of time. And as we hope to be the generation that, you know, kind of moves past that and really benefits and serves equality for everyone.
Yeah, I think I'd like to speak to that. And then also I can combine this with a question that just popped up a little bit about Christians who are more interested in pro-life. I think we're talking about issues of equality, and we're talking about issues of managing people in both of these questions. So to kind of combine them, I think there's an interest in like the Christian, like personal political agenda often to want to share and like live your religion out through other people. And that is the opposite. That's not even a part of our call to action as Christians, to like tell other people how to live their lives. Mm-hmm. I don't think that that's like, now we can edify, we can evangelize, we can share the word of God, we can share Christ. And that's a beautiful thing to do. That's what's asked of us when it comes to love God and love others, right? Very simple thing to do. But I think we get confused with our political interests sometimes. And we start to infuse our personal, I will not have a abortion, right? And we then say, then that also means that this person next door can't have an abortion, this person and this person. And then we start to oppress those people who have different beliefs than us, rather than engaging in some sort of love that would just simply be love, whatever that is, whatever is called of us. Now we have to go deep and find out, is telling someone and controlling them the way to love? Or is there another way that I can do this? And so that's what I kind of say sometimes, even when it comes to racial injustice, is that we really got to spend some time with ourselves and rid ourselves of biases and senses of like intolerance that we are taking on as a
Right.
part of personal political views, not as a part of our like relationship with Christ, because our relationship with Christ is very much individual. So we'll spend all this time thinking about other people rather than like internalizing, what is God speaking to me? Is God asking me to be an advocate for this vulnerable community? Or should I be telling, there's a lot of Christians that are utilizing the Black Lives Matter concept against Black lives to say, well, what about Black lives killing Black lives? And then it's just all like, wait, where are we going? Where are we going? So I think, I don't know if that fully answers the question, because I know often it's easier to like have a conversation about these issues of our faith as it relates to political views. It's easier to have a conversation because then it's not like an attack. Because I think a lot of people are getting very like defensive about like, well, this is what I believe. And so instead of just like, you know, hearing about this in a soundbite, I'm very big on like, if that is of interest to you and you want to talk a little bit more about faith as it relates to political, I'm like, please, I want to have a conversation. I don't want people to be like feeling like, oh, my view is like totally cast down here. It's just like, that's just what my opinion is. I just happen to be a panelist on this. So I always just like encourage people to reach out to me at Nicole J Move, because on Instagram, because that is very much my personal work around Christianity, is to be able to help people understand the internal work that we all have to do to rid ourselves of like oppressive behaviors, of biases, of bigotry, of intolerance, of like our inclination to discriminate, our inclination to oppress. I want to help us rid ourselves of those things so that we can see these issues a little bit more clearly, including things like being able to know about a young person who has always talked about being a Black male in America, and then recognizing, oh, maybe I've just like haven't been thinking about it that way. And now how can I do that so I can help that Black male and alleviate some of the pain that he may be experiencing?
Yeah, and there was a question in the chat as well in regards to protesting versus what people have been saying about violence and looting and all of that. And I think people have used that as an excuse of when there was looting and rioting. They've used that as an excuse to say, oh, well, that's what Black Lives Matter is, and I can't align with that. And, you know, people are blending things together so much without really checking for themselves. And I think it's what I agree with Nicole. I think it's about, at the end of the day, your internal journey and the work you're doing. And I think, especially for myself, we're not called on to ask more questions of ourselves around these matters growing up, or at least I haven't been in the way I have come out in this world. Is I haven't been asked some hard questions. I wasn't asking myself those questions because I assumed I was fine. And I'm like, you know, I was like, my intentions are pure, my intentions are good, but there's a lot of things that are very deep seated and they're ingrained within us from a young age. And it's our responsibility to do that work without, I think there's a lot of outward pressure right now to jump on trends. And that goes beyond just like Black Lives Matter movement on social media. That's the challenge accepted movement with women and all of that. And I think we just need to start asking more questions before we do things because it's expected of us. We need to know where it's coming from and why we're doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nicole, real quick. Now you say you're in Florida, right? Are you in Florida right now? And then Nicole, you're from South Carolina, but you live in New York now.
Well, yeah, Emily is from South Carolina, live in New York, yeah, and I'm from Florida. And
Okay.
I'm here.
And you're here now. So like, as far as like the debate around the mask, now I know Florida, you know, they were late to the party to getting people to wear the mask, and they wanted to stay open, and they had to pull it back. And then I'm pretty sure, is Florida like just fully open for business right now? Like, what's kind of the feel down there right now?
Yeah, a lot of people, it's interesting. The media will definitely showcase different stories. I'm in like the blue area of
Got you.
Florida at the bottom. So people are like adhering to mask wearing. You know, there is indoor dining, but everyone is very spread out. It really depends on what your pod is. Like the Broward County, people are pretty respectful. You get up to like Sarasota, you go in like middle of the state, you know, there's also like, I think there was a rally here recently at a retirement home with Mike Pence. And he, older people are like wearing their masks down here. It just depends on if you're in a red spot or a blue spot, I feel. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm staying inside my house if I can.
Good.
And then what did they feel about Mike Pence? I think that community, there were people who reportedly fainted at this rally due to whether it's heat exhaustion or most likely just, on-set issues health-wise.
Okay.
It was not a rally, it was a rally of supporters, so they're all there for him.
Correct.
To there and to, inflate his ego, which is fine. And I think the issue will be more so later on, 3 weeks, when we realize that might have been just like the Rose Garden, a place for Corona to run rampant.
Another super spreader event.
Yeah, at this point, it's unfortunately yet another political statement. And then these people will also connect faith to it in some way. It's like, God has us. And I get that. It's just very interesting how we're utilizing, and I feel so bad for the Christian faith. It has such a horrible, rap, because people are often just confusing their political beliefs with their Christianity. And then I get why no one would be into it. Because if you're out here saying that, God will have you, and then all of a sudden, I have 2 or 3 family members who have passed away, it's just like, it's difficult for me to reconcile what this faith really is and how it will put people in danger sometimes, literally, in several instances, historically and currently. But it's often the way that it's being wielded, we recognize, because there are people who are of faith, both Kamala and both Kamala and Joe Biden are people of faith as well. So I think that's often an issue, is that it's just in the power of whose hands.
We have 2 questions in the chat. That one was, do you feel that the protests are making a difference? And the other was, do you feel the adult Republicans are way more reckless than youth right now in regards to not wearing masks and not educating themselves around Corona, I believe?
So I'll take the protest question. And obviously at first, you saw it popping up everywhere throughout the country. And it was obviously inspiring. And then, excuse me, when you saw kind of cities kind of shifting and doing the different murals and stuff like that, then at that point, that's when you were kind of like, okay, like who's asking for this? Like, we don't need any more streets named after us. We don't need yellow paint on the roads. Like, we just want equality, right? We want to be able to have, better relationship with, policing and law enforcement, and just to be able to go about our lives equally. So I think the kind of ears are open a little bit more, but we are by no means like almost at the finish line whatsoever, because we see this a lot of times where it's a lot of lip service up front. And then when it's time to actually put in the work and to really sit down and try to work to make these changes and corrective actions, that's kind of when people start to take some steps back. So I would say it's motivating. I think it is inspiring, but I don't think we're anywhere near kind of where we envision ourselves right now. And again, for our generation, a lot of the ones who were, arranging these protests and leading them, you just want to continue to encourage them, motivate, be able to offer, any type of resources or assistance, because we know it's going to be needed, and we don't want them to feel like they're out there doing it alone, because that's usually when they say, all right, well, hey, I tried. I'm gonna go get a job now. I'm gonna go work. I'm gonna make some money. I'm gonna start a business, whatever the case may be. And then we lose, kind of these very prominent and needed voices in this space right now. So, again, this is going to be a rallying cry. We see how much our generation has already gone through right now. So this is just kind of something else to kind of add on and put in the backpack right now. And I'm definitely, always going to be motivated and do everything within my power to continue to push the ball forward.
I completely agree with you in regards to the protests. I think it's great to get visibility and to bring people together and to call attention. And there's certainly more work to do. We've seen where our country started and we're not where we need to be in. It's 2020, so this is a long journey. And I was wondering what kind of work you do with youth to empower them to keep going in the fight and to keep making our country better.
Got you. So maybe a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, I was actually one of the founding members to charter a chapter in my county, which was Union County Young Democrats. Again, to just have a group of like-minded individuals to be able to connect kind of that bridge with, the current, elected officials, and again, people who want to get involved. To be able to have a direct line and access. So we begin to fundraise to be able to endorse candidates who kind of spoke to our values, whether it be school board, council, mayor, assembly, senate. So it is extremely empowering. And again, you're able to because I think we'll be kidding ourselves if we didn't say, like money does matter. So when you're able to put up money and show in numbers as well, you're really being able to have a voice at the table. And then transition into that, I was recently, as of last year, elected as the Central Vice President for the New Jersey Young Dems. So now it's on a state level, being able to meet, other like-minded Democrats and even people who may be even more progressive than me, right? And it's all about learning, again, to be a little bit more well-rounded and to be able to kind of get a different perspective. And also, again, just to be able to utilize kind of like that toolbox mentality. And again, being able to kind of make these different relationships and contacts around the state and, to continue to grow. And then outside of here, just kind of doubling back to what we were talking about as far as like the economic inequalities. This was something, again, that I was really passionate about. And I knew that my community, minorities, women, we kind of never talk about money, but it exists. It's like the big elephant in the room. So again, getting people to learn about, life insurance, saving, investing, and the different kind of apps and tools that are out here right now. I used to always think like, oh, to invest, I need $5,000-$10,000. And it was like, no, to start investing, if that's something that you want to do, you can start with as little as $5. And we spend $5 on a cup of coffee and think nothing of it. So again, to just try to have that conversation, that long-term vision, again, to be able to set yourself up, for the life that you want to be able to lead, both politically, financially, and hopefully be able to move into, mentally, because we handle a lot, we go through a lot. So sometimes, like we see right now, the power of meditation, right? And being able to talk to someone, mental health, which is extremely important as well. So, these are the things that I'm extremely passionate about. And I want to be able to utilize, any resources that I have to kind of, just kind of be that helping hand.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I would love to ask, what are the thoughts you have around what's going on with unemployment right now in this country, and especially people whose industries have been hit. I know I can speak to the arts community and what that's been like as an artist, and also towards people who have recently graduated college who were hoping to enter the workforce and any resources or tips for them.
So obviously right now, when the pandemic started, you saw the unemployment shoot up and they got out the first stimulus package. So with that additional, 1,200, and then it was on a scale after that, but with the additional 600, it kind of wasn't as bad, right? You might have been out of work, but at least you were able to pay your bills. And then once that stopped, obviously a lot of people's budgets are, constrained even further right now. I know a lot of the states have different moratoriums as far as, anything dealing with as far as like evictions. And obviously if you're a homeowner, you're kind of trying to work out with your bank as well. But even more so than this, it's kind of really opening up this kind of new way of thinking to say, hey, I might have been in this career for 5, 10, 15 years. And I thought, this was going to be kind of my life. I was going to retire from this. And it's kind of really, even myself, right? I want to think and say, okay, what more skills do I need to be able to look at, just in case if I need to pivot, for a year or two, until things kind of come back up. So kind of that behavior of being like resilient. But again, it is extremely difficult and scary at the same time. I'm recently engaged, but like I don't have kids yet. Like I don't have all these other type of responsibilities that I know a lot of other families do have. And it's extremely scary. And to know that, the government, the ones who are kind of supposed to be able to tackle these larger problems, are kind of just, like looking, might punt it till after the election, but people's lives are, severely being affected on a daily basis. And it is scary. So again, that's why our voice really matters, because you see in these moments right here, who are the people who are stepping up to the plate, and you're obviously able to see the ones who aren't. All right, so obviously being able to tie that into, the thought process of potentially having to pivot into another career path as well, if things were to continue. But, just to get a little bit from you, Emily, I know you said you're in the arts. Like, how has this affected you? I know you probably have friends, coworkers.
Absolutely. When the pandemic hit, the arts were one of the first to struggle as usual because they struggled to get the funding we need. Throughout culturally in this country, I know in other countries, dancers, I mostly work as a performer and an educator. And I know in other countries, artists are more highly valued. And so it was definitely an adjustment, because I don't think it's anything any of us saw coming, but because artists are so creative, I believe we have all been resourceful, and I'm very thankful for technology, for spaces like Zoom and virtual shows and teaching online. I think that in every crisis, there's a silver lining. And I know this time has given a lot of artists a space to really tap into their personal voice. So I know for me, it's given me time to develop my teaching skills, to understand who I am as an independent artist without relying on a director or a choreographer to give me work. But I'm very, very thankful for the artists around me who have fundraised or who have brought in funding to support dancers at this time. And it's it's a long journey. So my encouragement to anyone out there whose industry hasn't suffered as much through this time is look at the artists in your life and see in what ways you can support them, whether it be take their dance class or donate to their company or just spread the news of what the work they're doing. Because obviously they want to keep working, but in safe ways that are not going to perpetuate the virus. So yeah, please be on the lookout. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. That's all. Do you want to speak to that, Nicole?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I was thinking a little bit as an artist myself, and transitioning into this space that you're talking about, a little bit of like, you get to listen to your own voice, you get to produce your own work. And really, a lot of people are having a hard time with that transition in general. It's also just a testament to like American, like, adaptability, in that this is a crazy time. Like, you either figured out how to find new work, you navigated the unemployment lines, you figured out something. And then on top of that, you have to figure out your purpose. Like, without my job, who am I? And that's a very unfortunate thing that happens for us when we realize that we were in a meritocracy, working extremely hard at things for whether it was prestige or for, moving up in the world, or were we doing it because we loved it? And then like, was there any other way of us doing that work, or were our identities attached to it? It's a very interesting dilemma. I found that out more so that I'm interested in like transitioning back into my artistry. And this time gave me such a beautiful opportunity to explore again. And then to receive support, like you said, from a lot of people who believe in me as an artist. And that's such a blessing. It's something that I didn't even realize I was burying underneath, but that's kind of like the commentary of like us running as fast as we can in this society towards things that we don't necessarily want.
So I think that just tying this back to on a political level, the head of our country is the face of our country, right? And so if we have a president who is not the type of president who you can go and see at the Kennedy Center honoree awards, and who's not someone who is valuing and respecting artists, then that's creating a model towards the rest of society who aren't artists to say we don't need that, which is so ironic because during a pandemic when we're all isolated, the only source of hope and encouragement came through the arts and entertainment, especially when you can't go out and do anything. And so I think it's important to go forward looking at in this election who are going to be supporting artists, because they're a huge part of bringing income and industry into our states and our cities, and how much revenue does Broadway bring in, and how many jobs are there out there through the film industry and through cruise ships and through theater, and the list just goes on and on. So as if we're looking about just in regards to the economy, whether or not you value the arts, if you value the economy, you need to value your artists.
Yeah, I think that the administration that we have had in the past all have not, we valued the arts in different ways. I think the Obama administration brought the arts directly to the White House in such a phenomenal way. And that was something new, giving all these artists access to this space that they didn't think that they'd ever, even be a part of. And it's a very large part of our culture to be able to involve ourselves in arts that are diverse. It's a part of my culture to be a part of diversity in the artist, in the world of entertainment and art. But I think what'll happen is if we don't have an administration that has the interest in diversity, then we'll see one version of art, and one lens. And that's why it's just so important to have a diverse ticket. It's important to have a diverse, like someone who appreciates diversity. Like, that would be outstanding if we could just have someone who appreciates diversity, so then they could just bring other people on. But when you just have this homogeneity in our administration, then the art's going to look like that. The people who receive support will look just like them too. And, after a while, it's like, why do we have to keep advocating for diversity? It's like, why not? Like, why not have people who look like us in these larger places of power, who have stronger and like more broader perspective of other forms of art? It's just disappointing that we have to even consider that there's a ticket that does not have any kind of diversity, that they would actually be useful for us, or that they would like serve us. And so that's why I'm extremely interested when it comes to the concept of artistry, is that the people who are in power are going to support the art that they like. And if it's just all the same types of people, then, none of us are going to get that. But thankfully, there is the cultural aspect of this. Like, people in our society will support artists that they believe in. And that is how, like, I as an artist can continue, or how you, Emily, or even Brandon, all of our efforts exist because of our diverse environments that are interested in our work, interested in how we promote diversity and how we talk about other different cultures. So I have hope in our culture. Don't have much hope in our administration currently, and hope that we can just switch it up a little.
Exactly, be able to restore that. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Just in closing, obviously, we've all kind of made our case to our fellow youth out there, the importance of this, no matter if you're 18 to 32, 33, 34. We've kind of had our 3.5, 4 years of this current administration to see. People were definitely upset when Trump won, but be that as it may, he was the president. He is the president at the time. And so we've got a large enough sample size to know that this isn't the direction that we envision our country. We kind of look, has our quality of life improved since then? Has, our family structure improved since then? Has education improved since then? And I think it's hard to see any sizable gains so far. So it's time for us to make our voice be heard loudly, So again, we can move in a new administration and to again hold them accountable to make sure that we do see this, I guess, this new energy. And obviously, people aren't going to be, that excited for Biden, but I feel like we're at this crossroads right now where, Biden is going to be the ending of that generation and this new, exuberance that's going to come out. And again, I can't stress it more, but all politics are local. So from the bottom to the top, let's continue to be engaged in that because it is a part of our civic duty. We did have our ancestors who fought, and many gave their lives for us to be able to have this right that we weren't birthed with. So it's a very small part, but it's going to have a tremendous effect on our lives, our neighbors' lives, and our future generation lives.
Yeah, and I would just like to encourage everyone that I think there is still hope for our country, and that at the end of the day, we have two choices. Our choice is to live in a society that we're not pleased with and to complain about, or to do small things that can make a difference and to create an impact, because the impact starts in your thoughts and your actions and your words, and they trickle out. So while it can feel overwhelming, if you maintain that mentality and you surround yourselves by others with similar values in regards to that, there is still hope for our country. So if you ever need that kind of encouragement, we're here for you, and there's resources around you. Just don't be afraid to reach out and ask for that.
Yeah. And I'll close also by encouraging us to seek out the healing that we need. Our responsibility is to vote, but then our personal responsibility is to maintain our mental health so that we can consistently be a part of this society. And even if it doesn't go our way, we have work that we can consistently do to edify our communities. I know that both the three of us all have initiatives that we are championing. And I'll share out that my space called Edify is a place for healing and for dismantling systemic oppression. People can find out about us on Instagram at Proud to Be a Mover. So it's proud, the number 2 and the letter B, a mover. And you can learn more about a community of people who are advocating for one another, nourishing other advocates so that they can be of service. Because no matter where these elections go, the culture is the thing that, community organizers like King and like Malcolm X, and a variety of other organizers, were the ones who create the culture at the bottom, and who people at the top definitely have pull, but we can create some harmony down here too. So just wanted to give that little snippet. And I don't know, Brandon, if you wanted to talk a little bit about your initiative as well.
Absolutely. So obviously people can follow me on Instagram. My handle is simple, Brandon, middle initial T, last name Givens. So you can kind of see where I'm about. I'm not heavy on politics all the time. I'm fun loving. If you look on my page right now, it's all about LeBron. I'm a huge LeBron fan. The Lakers winning. So I try to mix it in because again, we are regular people. I don't want to overdo it, but I want people to be able to understand what is important as well, and as well as to be able to have fun. You can follow me, Union County Young Democrats on Instagram, and also outside of here, the financial literacy part of it is called The Lab, with 2 underscores at the end. So you can follow us as well. So moving forward within the next year, we'll be doing a lot more virtual stuff, bringing on some guest speakers as well and just to be able to educate and give people the resources that they need to become the best version of themselves.
My work is more specific to arts advocacy because I'm an early career artist. So you can follow me at Emily Hart Lopez, Hart Lopez, Lopez, like Kevin Hart and J-Lo, if you ever want to remember. And then my initiative has been through my personal brand called Hart Heals. It's at Hart HEALS, and I offer dance classes as well as personalized coaching and training and collaborative projects and events. And the whole purpose behind it is where passion is the purpose and healing follows. So my belief is that I want to help others to find where their purpose is and to dive into their passion in order to be a little closer to feeling a little bit more whole. And I think that work is very important, and the rest will trickle out.